Welcome to week 3, everybody, and the start of our second unit, archetypes. In this unit, we're going to get into what archetypes are, and specifically, we're going to look at the archetype of the hero's journey, and then move into gods as archetypes. So let's dive right in by getting started with some vocab and lecture notes. Make sure you got this document ready to go. Unit 2's vocab and lecture notes are going to be split between these 2 weeks. So for week 3, we're going to begin with just 2 vocab words, archetype and monomyth. Archetype is a model or a pattern. That is, it's a recurring character or tale type. I could say something like, Superman fits the classic hero archetype. Now, monomyth is a version of an archetype. It is the archetype for the typical hero's journey. So that's a kind of a story. It's the hero's tale, especially seen in myths. Luke Skywalker and Hercules both follow the monomyth. We'll get into where that word comes from next. So, for lecture, we're going to talk about Joseph Campbell now and the hero's journey. There are 7 different heroes up on your screen right now. Cuchulainn, Krishna, Joan of Arc, Obatala, Siddhartha, Arthur, and Heracles all follow the hero's journey. So, what is this thing? Well, it comes from a man named Joseph Campbell. Joseph Campbell was an American mythologist and a folklorist, as well as a writer and a lecturer. Campbell focused his studies on comparative mythology and comparative religion. He liked to look at stories from around the world and see what they had in common and what made them unique. He was instrumental in developing our modern concept of the hero's journey, which he called the monomyth. He picked out 17 different steps that heroes from around the world seem to follow. These break down into the departure from the known, the initiation, proving one's worth, and finally, the return. The hero first leaves the ordinary world of the waking consciousness, enters the dark world of unknown dangers, then overcomes those who would destroy him or her there, and finally returns to the ordinary world, now possessed of new powers and knowledge that he or she will use to help the common people. That's the basics of the hero's journey. Psychologists like Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung, who were contemporaries of Joseph Campbell, were also interested in his work and how the hero could be seen as a metaphor for our inner psyche. The hero with 1,000 faces, as Joseph Campbell calls him, is our persona, a representation of all of us in the world of mythology and folklore. We can all see ourselves in the ways that heroes overcome adversity on the path to self-actualization. One of the key elements in the hero's journey is the inclusion of certain key characters, and these show up in just about every heroic story. Firstly, we can't have a hero story without having a hero, but that breaks into a few more specific categories. The hero, who's typically the most active protagonist in an adventure, has many variants. The most obvious is the classic hero. This is often a god or a demigod. It's a character who is beyond the average human. He or she stands for all that a culture values. They are the best of their kind. An anti-hero, on the other hand, is usually just an average mortal. They are flawed and imperfect. They are unlikely heroes. But they're still heroes. That's important. A lot of people make the mistake of thinking that anti-hero means that they are against the hero. That's not true. That will fall more into the villain category, and we'll get into that later. Finally, we have a tragic hero. The tragic hero is a good character, but with a fatal flaw that leads to his or her suffering. An important distinction, this doesn't just mean somebody who has tragedy in their life. In fact, a great many classic heroes and anti-heroes begin their life with some kind of a tragic backstory. For the tragic hero, this means that their story ends badly, and it's because of some character trait of theirs. Now, for the hero to have an adventure, they need a herald. The herald is the person, or sometimes an item or even an event, that calls the hero to go on the adventure. This could be an ally who brings them news of some urgent matter, or it could simply be something that happens that forces them to act. The sage, or mentor figure, is a wise elder. Now, this is usually an old man or a father figure, like Merlin the magician. This character offers guidance, either natural or mystical, that helps the hero on their way. Threshold Guardians are characters who stand in the way of the hero going on their quest. They might be enemies or they might even be allies, but they are some obstacle that stops the hero from facing their ultimate peril. The Trickster is a character who disobeys normal rules and uses cunning to outsmart his or her often more powerful counterparts. The Trickster is sometimes also the Shapeshifter. A shapeshifter is a character who changes roles over the course of the story. So we're not talking about literal shapeshifting, although that does happen sometimes as well. For instance, a villain who becomes an ally, or perhaps a damsel in distress who becomes a trickster, could be considered shapeshifters in a story. Finally, we get the villain, also called the shadow or the devil figure. This character is evil incarnate. They are a wicked, malevolent character. Occasionally, they are accompanied by a lesser evil with a good heart. In these instances, it's usually by appealing to their conflicted counterpart that the villain is ultimately defeated. There are lots of other popular archetypes as well. The child, the temptress, the mother, the father, the damsel in distress, and the fool are just a few. As you move into the Google Classroom this week, you'll see that you have a 3 archetypes assignment. For that, you're going to pick any heroic story that you like. Books, TV, movie, they're all fair game. In that story, you're going to identify 3 archetypes. One of them needs to be a hero. You get to decide if they're classic, tragic, or anti-hero. And then for the other 2, you can pick any of the other archetypes from the list provided. You'll see it in the slides that I've given you. Write a clear and logical explanation for each of your choices, clearly expressing why that character you picked fits the definition of that archetype, and use specific details about each character and then language directly from the definition of each archetype. Find and paste the image of those characters into the top, and then be prepared to share with your classmates. That about wraps us up for our vocab and lecture portion, but if there's any chance that you've missed class on Thursday, make sure you also pop open the Perseus assignment. In there you'll see both a text version and a link to a video version of the basically same story of Perseus. After you've read that one, you're going to answer a few questions, including a comparison of the 2 versions. That's it. For this week, you'll need to make sure that you do vocab and lecture notes. You'll need to make sure that you get done with a 3 archetypes assignment, and you'll need to make sure that you do the Perseus Hero's Journey assignment. That's it. If you've got all those things done, then you're in excellent shape to see me back here next week. Until next time, take care.